Hello, everybody. It's John Kranz. I want to welcome you to Compass Games Live, episode 73. Tonight's March 11th, 2022. It's wonderful to have you here. Just to let you know, just some quick housekeeping. Two things you may have noticed. First, we have a new intro theme. Everybody's so used to our smooth jazz that we start, but we did work with Facebook as we promised to do because Facebook was getting blocked, and it turned out there was a music company that was claiming copyright to what really is a free domain lyric that or music, intro music, and but nothing we can do about it, obviously. So we had to switch it out for tonight. But to sort of put salt on the wound, I do have an alert on my screen that we are having issues with our Facebook stream. Now, it should not be related to the intro music because, again, we took extra steps to make sure we had something that was royalty free. So it's actually, this is the first time I've seen a report of a problem with a feed with Facebook right in here. So I'm assuming it's a technical issue that Facebook is going through right now. And I did notice some people did comment also, even on YouTube, that streaming issues seem to be going on as far as quality. Hopefully that picks up. You guys can let me know if the quality looks like it's getting better or not. Yeah, it's a bad hair day for me, As you can see, nothing I can do about that. It's just my hair does its own thing. So anyway, it's great to have you guys on board tonight. It's a pleasure to be back. I hope everybody's had a really good week. It's a special Friday night episode. We had to move the schedule out to Friday night. So again, it's very much a pleasure to be here. So let's go ahead and let's just do some... Let's take care of some logistics just in the back end as far as the latest news. I'll go ahead and zoom in here just to go over, as always, our project release schedule that we always like to cover. So first of all, we have our next release, which the Kickstarter just recently ended. So thanks for all those who either pre-ordered the game direct or who pledged on our Kickstarter. And we had almost 200 pledges on Kickstarter. So we really appreciate the support for our Kickstarter program. And that is War for America. So War for America will ship a week from today. The plan is the drop ship date will be the 18th of March. So we're only a week away from the release of War for America, and I know a lot of you are anxiously anticipating receiving that game. And yeah, we're excited to be able to get it out shortly as well. You can also check out, we've got 1 or 2 interviews on War for America that are available if you want to check those out. Also, if you visit the Kickstarter page, you can see the rule booklet, you can download it, etc. So it's all available there. Next up is Barbarians at the Gates. And again, it's probably hard to read my screen. So let me see if I can even go in a little bit bigger here for you. So again, Barbarians at the Gates is right here. That's going to be our next release. No specific timeline on that one yet, but we'll definitely be sure to get that to you. And then we have the Russian campaign will be shipping in April. I do know it will be the month of April for Russian campaign. So we're excited about that. And then another John Edwards title, which will be African Campaign Deluxe Edition. So this is a second edition. Obviously, the biggest difference is the map will be a mounted game map for the first time instead of a paper map. And then a lot of you have been following John Butterfield's Enemy Action series. So we've got Kharkov coming out shortly thereafter. Then Adam Starkweather with A Test of Faith. A very popular World War I title, new edition of Death in the Trenches, mounted map. Then we have our follow-on title for Napoleon's Eagles, Napoleon Eagles 2. So we're excited about that. And then we will wrap it up with another John Edwards. So that's 3 John Edwards designs. That's going to be Victory at Sea. And then, of course, our Paper Wars subscription is now kicking off with a new set. So if you were a current subscriber up through 100 and you haven't resubscribed yet, you want to definitely resubscribe to Paper Wars because our new subscription is now kicking in starting with issue 101. So 101 through 104 of Paper Wars is part of our new subscription. So make sure if you can make sure you have a chance to look at the 4 issues, what games are being offered, and hopefully you'll decide to hit that subscribe button to renew your subscription or to maybe subscribe for the very first time. Now, also some announcements that I want to make. So first of all, Barbarians at the Gates just recently went live on Kickstarter about, maybe 2-3 hours, a few hours ago. So we didn't issue a newsletter for this week because typically we try to time it with the Kickstarter launch. And so we were thinking next week would be the newsletter. But since we have an interview and it's actually a pre-recorded interview with Kris Van Beurden. We at least want to provide the Kickstarter now, get it launched right away for tonight, so it's available for you, as you see here. And we'll definitely be playing the pre-recorded interview I did earlier this week with Kris, where we talk about the game. And at the end of that, of course, you can go directly to Kickstarter now to place your pledge, but I should have a link that I can provide and drop in the comments section. I'll go ahead and do that after we have basically conducted that interview and aired that live. So actually what I'd like to do at this time is just mention one more thing, and that is we have a Learn to Play scheduled through Maurice Fitzgerald, Mo's Game Table. So Mo has recently announced our next official Learn to Play session will be hosted by Tim Porter, and it's going to be on March 23rd, so about 2 weeks away at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. And that will be on, I wish this series got more attention. I really feel like this is just a wonderful game series, but I don't see much online about it. But those that play it really swear by it. They really love this tactical system for World War I. And that is the Red Poppy campaign series. And this is going to be the most recent campaign volume in this series. It's volume 3. Assault Artillery. And again, a great opportunity to learn about the series. We still have volume 2 available besides volume 3. So we have 2 of the 3 volumes available. Sadly, volume 1 did sell out on quite a while ago, but it's probably available on the resale market somehow for those that are looking for it. So I want to thank Mo Fitzgerald again. Mo, thank you so much for hosting our Learn to Plays and scheduling them. And we look forward to welcoming Tim Porter, who's going to be the official instructor of our Learn to Play session. And with that, what I'd like to do now is let's go ahead and segue again to our Kickstarter. I'll return to this page after this pre-recorded session completes, and then I look forward to doing the live interview and broadcast with Joe Fernandez tonight as well for his game project. But let's take a moment. You're gonna see my background's in a completely changed, because this was done earlier in the day, as you'll see when you watch the video pre-recording. So let's go ahead and switch to that now, and then we'll come back. We'll rejoin live after this segment. So let's learn more about Barbarians at the Gates with our interview with Kris Van Beurden. Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you to this pre-recorded session for tonight's segment of Compass Games Live. We're going to be doing an interview with Kris Van Beurden, who's the designer of Barbarians at the Gates. We're excited to be introducing this game to you. It's actually going to be launching on Kickstarter shortly, if it hasn't launched already at the time of airing the live episode on Friday night, March 11th. But yes, the Kickstarter, will be sharing the Kickstarter page here in a moment, just in case it hasn't gone live yet as we talk about the game further. But again, we're real excited to have Kris on board. And without further ado, let's go ahead and bring Kris in. Welcome, Kris. Great to have you on this evening.
Great to be here. Hello.
And I want to say, for you, it's evening. Although we're doing this session, for me, it's middle of the day. But I know there's a time zone change with you being based overseas. So it's evening time for you. I was hoping you could share with everybody where you're based out of, and also if you can share a little bit about your past published design, Europe in Turmoil, for Compass Games as well.
Yeah, so I'm from Belgium, so it's a bit later now for me. And indeed, we're here to talk about Barbarians at the Gates, but in the past I designed for Compass Games Europe in Turmoil, which will be getting a deluxe second edition normally later this year.
We're really excited about that, and thanks again for joining us from Belgium. It's a pleasure to have you on. Apologies to those that are on the live stream. Obviously, we can't take any live questions for you, but that would be unfair, because I think it would be 4 in the morning for you, which would be an unfair punishment for all the great work you've done. But thank you for Europe in Turmoil. And of course, we're really excited about the Kickstarter that's going to be coming up. I'm actually showing it here. This is the project draft version. So in other words, we're getting the Kickstarter staged and ready for launch. And again, I'm not sure as far as timing wise if the Kickstarter will be live when I'm live on Friday night, and then adding this pre-recorded session to our live session. But it's going to be very soon. It's our next Kickstarter, and we're really excited about it. I was hoping what you could do is introduce Barbarians at the Gates for us, for those that have not heard of the game yet, and maybe haven't had a chance to even check out the Kickstarter page in case it hasn't launched yet. Could you tell us a little bit at a high level what the game's about, what the topic is, and what the game system involves?
Yeah. So, Barbarians at the Gates is really, at its heart, a game about the fall of the Western Roman Empire. So, at a certain moment, barbarian Germanic tribes came from the east, from Asia, and started crossing the Rhine and the Donau River into the Western Roman Empire, and eventually it fell.
And then I want to share we have this on our website, so this is actually available today, is the back of the box. So there is more information about the game. I'll zoom in here a little bit. It shows the time period being 337 to 476, so during that decline period you mentioned. But notice here, obviously, people will notice right away there's quite a few cards on the back of the box. So this is a card-driven base design. Could you share with us a little bit about the card-driven design that you have here? And while you're doing that, I'll go ahead and I'll start showing some of the cards that we have for the game, if that's okay.
Yeah, so the cards are divided in two decks. Both players, the barbarian player and the Roman player, has his own deck, and they are quite standard card-driven game cards. So that means you have an event and you have operation points in the yellow circle. So either you play this card, for example, that's shown now for the Allan invasion, you bring the Allan tribe into play, or you use the card just for 2 operation points. You don't care about the Allans, you use 2 operation points for raiding, for moving leaders, for placing political influence.
And how many cards are there per side for both sides in the game?
So each deck, each player has 55 cards, but they're divided over 5 different sections of the deck. So for different scenarios, you use different sets of cards. For example, this Allan invasion, it's part of the 3rd wave, which means it will only come into play after 440 AD, to make sure that you don't get too anachronistical things happening. The Allan invasion a century early, for example.
And it looks like there's a remove after play indicator on here too, that once you play the card, it's gone from the deck?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, and stop me when I come to a card that you want to comment on further. So I'll let you, I'll keep going until you stop me. So
yeah. So here maybe, so this card is from the Prelude.
Prelude?
The original game concept was to have just 9 turns, starting in 460 and going to the fall of the Roman Empire. But eventually I decided to also add the Roman Civil War that happened just before. And that is called the Prelude. And so there are some cards which are just for that scenario.
Was it hard for you? So when you decided that you wanted to cover that historical period, the Prelude, did you have to change maybe some rules or subsections, or was it more a simple matter of getting some additional cards created to back those historical events? I'm curious, how big of a shift was that for you as the designer to start earlier in the period?
Well, basically I did this because I had made a system and I had made the scenarios for those 9 turns of history that I wanted to cover. And I found that those rules and the system, it could also do that civil war. And then I decided to just add that because it's just additional history and it's something else. It means it means the game is not just barbarians against Romans, but there is also a scenario where the barbarians are actually not there yet. There is just, here you see, there is just a couple of Alemanni that maybe come, but it's mostly Roman against Roman in a civil war, and it's a different thing, but using the same rule sets and the same cards.
Interesting. Yeah, that's quite different, but it's great that the underlying game system would work. Just the cards had to be changed out. And I'm going to just sort of scroll through some cards here. But I'm curious for the subject matter itself, because again, we talked about Europe in turmoil, World War I. What drew your interest to cover an Ancients era game as we have here with Barbarians at the Gates?
In Belgium, there is really during history classes at school, there is quite a lot of focus on the Greek and Roman civilizations. And because here in Belgium, they only reached us actually after they had their peak. we mostly learn about the fall also, because that also starts then the medieval period, where Belgium or Flanders or France, they were bigger powers than at this stage. So really this fall is something that gets discussed a lot in our school system.
Oh, that's great. And then I'm going to switch over. Let me scroll past the 55 cards so we can go to the Roman cards here, which I believe starts right here, correct? So are the cards similar? So between the both sides, barbarians and the Romans, is card play pretty standard, similar type of, events will be obviously different, or is there special consideration between both sides as far as the cards they have available to them during play?
So there's a lot of similarities. So both sides have battle cards, both sides have campaign cards. There is one card type that's quite unique to the barbarian, it's the invasions, when new tribes get added.
Okay.
But actually, here I'm going to talk a bit about who you're playing. There's actually only 2 players, but there is 4 powers in the game. What do I mean by that? Obviously, the Roman player will control the loyalist Roman power, but the barbarian player will also be using Romans, because in this period of time, there were often generals or governors who took their armies and decided to make a push for the throne. And so that means that the barbarian player can actually have a leader of the Roman join his side. And actually the same happens with the barbarians. So there's barbarians trying to cross the Rhine into the Roman Empire. But Rome can also invite some of these barbarian tribes into the Roman Empire, give them a bit of ground. They can have it as a subject power. On the condition that they defend it against the other barbarians, against the other Germanic invaders. So that really means that both sides are using Romans and both sides are using barbarians. So the cards do match actually on both sides.
I really love the history. I mean, that's the great thing about card-driven systems. You can bring in so much rich history into the game, much like how you said, just you added that prelude period about the Roman, the Roman conflict of themselves before the barbarians would show up, and you just had to add cards for that, and it's very interesting. Let me do this. I want to show the game map. Maybe you can give us an overview if I show the game map of what we're seeing here. Maybe you can explain, and I can zoom in. This is the complete map. It's a mounted map, by the way, so everybody knows the map will be mounted. And how would you like to start? Near the top, maybe? And then we can go clockwise through the map, perhaps?
That's good. So really quickly, so first everything that's around the map, and then let's focus on the map. Okay. So at the top you see where the victory points are tracked. Yep. Then you see, if we go clockwise, you see a lot of tables, combat tables, yep. Siege tables, the leader activation table, which is something that we need to focus on later. You see spaces for deck and discard, and then a bit lower, there you can see the tribal reserve, which is a really important thing. So I said earlier, the Roman player can invite barbarians inside Rome to defend him. That's obviously a very strong thing, because the barbarian player loses something that he put effort in putting on the board, and the Roman player gets it. But the more territory the Roman player gives away to barbarians, the less he can do with his Romans. So that means that instead of drawing up to 7 cards, because you draw 7 cards every turn, for each tribe that's allied to the Roman player, one of those cards will go into the tribal reserve. And that means only tribes can use that. So the more tribes you get, the more barbarian that the Roman Empire becomes, because actually the Roman Empire, it didn't fall, it's just at a certain point there were more barbarians than Romans left.
Oh wow! And then I see on the map itself, I like the touch here. You've distinguished between walled cities, which is that rectangular dashed white dashes, and cultivated spaces, developed spaces, etc. So it's really interesting. Transit spaces, border spaces. It's really interesting how you.
So there's 4 types of spaces. So if you do walled cities, they are really important. They're something that you can base a defense on. It's hard to take those. Yeah. Cultivated spaces, it's just a lot of farmers and big latifundia, the big how to call that, manor houses and things like that. Yeah. There's a lot of plunder there, and they're not very well defended. So they're actually bad for the Roman player. And then you have the limes spaces, so it's the little diamonds. They're basically like cultivated spaces, except they don't have the liability of being able to be plundered. So they're limes, they're really the border. They were full with veteran soldiers who got a farm when they had done their service, and it's really it's a buffer zone.
And then it shows as a buffer zone here, actually, doesn't it? It really divides the areas here. So that's interesting how you came up with that concept. And then
there at the limes spaces, you can also see there is a lot of river connections. The dashed blue lines. So
yes.
There you can see the Rhine. And a bit further east you can see the Donau. It's really between the diamonds, the border spaces, and then Germania. You see all those rivers. That's the crossings. And the funny thing is you can see one point where there is no river. Because the Donau and the Rhine, they don't connect. So that's one space, and that's really... Players will see that's really a good point to dash
natural
with
barrier. That makes total sense. And what do we have here near the top left? I see a lot of provincial control. It looks like you're tracking controls and alignments of the tribes.
Yes,
from what
you
I
see, are they still barbarian or are they allied with the Roman? And then provincial control, because that's really the heart of the game. So every turn, the Roman player checks if he still controls 7 provinces.
Okay.
If he has 7, nothing happens. If he has more, he gains victory points. If he has less, he loses. The barbarian player doesn't track victory points at all. And it's the goal of the barbarian player to get the Roman victory points to 0.
Understood.
And he does that by taking provinces.
So it's interesting. So to recap, you said this is a 2-player game. My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Kris, I believe it's 7 scenarios total in the game?
Yes.
So there's 7. So there's quite a variety in number of scenarios. Some shorter, of course, than others. And I was going to ask you, because if I was live right now and I had my comments from my viewers, guess what the first question would be? Besides, is it available to order yet on Kickstarter, etc.? It would be how's solitaire suitability? I get that asked for any game I talk about. So can you share a little background about how would one solitaire this game, if you don't mind?
So as designer, I played this a lot on my own.
Sure.
Of course, that was to check if things work, but actually I do play a lot of games of this type alone. You need to be able to compartmentalize a little bit the different sides, but it's definitely playable solitaire. Additionally, I know that there is several methods like Stuka Joe's method for playing these games solitaire.
Yes, he has that card-driven methodology he came up with of here's how you can turn this into a solitaire-friendly game. That's a good point, and I think I actually interviewed Stuka. He did sequence of play cards also, which I talked about, but he did come up with this solitaire system around any card-driven game, pretty much. So that's an excellent point that one could look to Stuka Joe's methodology and apply it here to your game. So that's excellent to hear. Now I'm going to go back just for a moment to the Kickstarter page that we have here. Okay. What I thought we could do is focus in on. You said you want to talk about the leaders in the game. Let me see if I can even zoom in here just a little bit more so they can see some of the leader counters here. If you could maybe talk about that.
Yeah, so the game is really based on the leaders, on really activating these leaders. They do most of your work for you. Mm-hmm. And again, this game is based on certain card-driven game giants of the past. So if you look at the leaders, the way they look will be familiar. So you see a leader like Attila here has 2 ratings. Yes. You have the initiative rating, which you want to be as low as possible.
Okay, a 1,
and,
so that's good.
The strategy rating, which you want as high as possible. So that's how good he is in combat, basically.
Yes.
Bodyguard is in there, leadership, those style of things. So what does the initiative mean? We saw the operation points earlier. Every card is rated 1 to 3. And with typically with these games, a leader with an initiative rating of 1 could be activated with a 1, 2, or 3, whereas a leader with an initiative rating of 3, like Hengis just below, you can only activate him with a 3.
Yeah, so it's a much more limited ability to activate. Yes.
So what I did in this game, because usually these games, this system, for example, occurs in Hannibal, Rome versus Carthago. What happens is both sides have kind of the same technology level, the same discipline. So you have leaders with 1, 2, and 3 rating on both sides. It's basically just the leader himself.
Yeah.
In my game, most barbarian leaders, especially in the beginning of the game, are rated 2 or 3. And many of the Romans are rated 1, to make a distinction between discipline, between the way of fighting.
Is that going to limit for the barbarian? So if I'm a barbarian player and I've got the leaders that are initiative is a 2 or a 3, that means I can't play those 1. I assume that means I can't play those 1 cards, or there's certain things I'm unable to do. Maybe I can play the operation points instead of the event.
Now you can. Now you can go back to the map. Maybe.
Sure. I'll go back.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there was a leader activation table. So I made a little bit of an innovation here. So other games also innovated, like doing things like an operations queue where you could stack some cards to make sure that you could activate even with a 1. The 3 1s is a 3. What I did is, I also found it often weird that a leader with a 1 initiative rating, if you activate him with a 3, it doesn't matter. It's actually a waste. So in my game, in this game, it's not like that. If you activate a leader with the correct number of operation points, you just get an activation. A 1 with a 1, a 2 with a 2, a 3 with a 3.
Yeah, I see you've got the ops cards. You got the 1 that it's hard because I don't have this prepared to rotate. Indeed. But you've got the 1 ops card, the 2 ops card, and the 3 ops card as their own separate rows. And then based on the initiative rating, the result's going to be different in terms of looks like how many action points they're going to have to expend.
More. If you have a 1 initiative and a 3 is played, you can do a lot. And if you have a lot of leaders with the 3, you can still activate them with your 2s.
Interesting. Now that's going to be a nice wrinkle to the system. Thank you for bringing that in. I think that's going to catch people's attention for sure. So I like the concept behind why you introduced that, because like you said, there was no penalty or differentiation based on when you activated somebody based on the value of that card, the card value. So yeah, that sounds really intriguing.
While we're here at the map, maybe just say also, you can see a lot of those connections in Germania, they are brown.
Yes.
Or blue. That costs a lot of action points because there is no good roads there. Whereas Rome had a lot of highways, some of them which are still in use at this day in Europe, which means that Rome, even if it has a lot of territory, it has some kind of interior lines. You can move very quickly from one side to another. That if you add that to the fact that their leaders have a little lower initiative,
so they're very mobile, aren't they?
Mobile. They will have fewer troops, so they have to be everywhere. So the barbarian player can really toss a lot of troops in there, and Rome has to extinguish the fires with the same leader all the time.
Yeah, I like how that was done on the map, like you said, because you can see it's even a dashed line in Germania, that it's just, it looks like a slog for movement versus the solid lines you've got established in Rome area that things are going to...
One of the things there that you can see, the real capital at this time of the Western Roman Empire was Mediolanum in the middle of the game. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's Milan of today, and from there you see there is a lot of roads which are very long. Very few intervening spaces, so you can get from there to everywhere in one activation.
No, that's interesting. So that's really interesting. So I can see the challenges of maneuver are going to be different for both sides. It's going to be tough on the barbarians, as you say, given at least the areas up there as well. Just in that area particularly, it's going to be tough. I want to share a little bit with the counter sheets that we have as well. So let me go ahead. And I'm not showing all the counter sheets, so I can go back to the Kickstarter image. But again, these are just more the generic. These aren't the leaders, so I'm not showing any leader counters. There's obviously a lot of leader counters in the game, but what's the scale? Is there like a scale by number of points for the troops at all? Is it more of a loose range?
Mostly, I think it's gonna be 1,000 legionnaires per strength point.
Okay, great. Okay, so here we can see
The
those,
Barbarians
and then
probably
maybe
slightly more.
I think the Kickstarter might show more here as well, so I can go here to show a little bit more about how they look. So I'll scroll here so you can get a better idea, because there are more counter sheets included in the game than what I have on the website right now. There's a mounted map again. We just talked about the provincial control, which you mentioned, gets into the cards, which talks about the ops value, which you have that new table on that you just mentioned, how you're handling that if it's a 3, 2, or 1, how that can have an impact. Oh, here's a good, again, a good summary. Anybody who's in the card-driven games, they're gonna be comfortable with this right away. With that, with the exception of that wrinkle you've added, that's an added consideration of how you activate based on these card values or these ops value of these card values. So yeah, no, I think it's good. I think the Kickstarter page will be helpful, and we have an unboxing on there. And I know we have a series of articles we plan to do to support the game upon its launch as well, besides, of course, what we're talking about right now. From a strategy standpoint, do you have a preference when you played the game or when you play two-player? Do you have a personal preference of which side you'd like to play in this game? I'm just curious about that as the designer.
So for most of the scenarios, Rome is really the defender and the underdog, actually. They have the big empire, but there's barbarians everywhere. And I like that. I like being the defender and being from behind. One of my main playtesters for this game was my wife, and she's the opposite. She really likes to be attacking.
Oh, perfect.
So I usually played Rome, and she usually played the barbarians.
That works out great. Here's some player aid cards, by the way. You know, some summaries for the players about the various, like interception, avoiding battle, and migration being 16.0, rules case 16.0. So you've got some very helpful player cards to ease play during play. I think I have a second one here as well. So here's the sequence of play as well. That's included on the left column. So yeah, a lot of different things going on. You mentioned the sieges for the walled cities already, how they're much easier to defend. It's going to be a tougher to crack for the, I guess it's barbarians mainly that are, looking to siege.
If I can add one more thing here, so you can see in the sequence of play, there's a migration phase.
Yes,
so
right
basically
here.
each tribe comes with a tribal marker, and that tribal marker, if it moves somewhere, you automatically control it. So the combat units of a tribe, they really have to fight, but the tribe itself, it's a lot more people. It's the women, it's the children, it's the non-warriors of the tribe. And if they get somewhere, they take over that territory. But they can't get through fortresses. They can't get through fortifications or through walled cities. So it's basically Rome has to hold on to its borders, and if a border gets opened, they have to build a new border or something like that.
Yes.
Because otherwise the tribes get through, and then it's all over.
Interesting. And then just to let everybody know, once the Kickstarter has launched, we have, as you can see here, we have the rules booklet for the game. We always make the rules available online, and we typically do that once the Kickstarter goes live. So again, that could be happening at any moment. I want to also give a hat tip to Shane Logan, the artist for the game, who did a spectacular job for us. So thanks to him again. Looks like at most a moderate complexity game, not overly complex, not a ton of Chrome rules. Again, it's just to capture the key historical facets of the design that you've gone after. So I'm just giving people a sort of sneak peek here as far as the graphics, the layout of the rule booklet. A lot of graphics, a lot of images, a lot of not much text per page, as you can see, going through the cards here now, and talking about leaders and leader displacement. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Again, a lot of illustrations to really take people through. I don't think the learning curve here, especially for those that have played many card-driven games, I think it's going to be very natural for them to get into here. Here's the actual cards, getting into the draw card phase, etc. as well, and the tribal reserves you mentioned earlier, getting into the battles. So yeah, again, not much text on any of these pages, but a lot of good illustrations. And then a battle sequence that's included here, going through the battle sequence itself, and the siege tables. So good attention to combat, it looks like, from what we have here. Getting into raids, as well as naval, which is interesting, and now some examples. And here, I guess, forced march. Like you said, are the Romans going to need forced march with the road network being what it is? But you said they have to cover such a broad territory. Yeah, maybe they might have to, huh?
So forced march is really a way for combat units to be moved without a leader. So it means that
gotcha.
you can do some kind of strategic movement of troops, because that always also is something. The barbarian, he gets his reinforcements every turn with his tribe, whereas the Romans get them in each province. So they have to move up from the provinces that are not on the border
Quite a
to the
distance.
border. Yes,
Quite a
indeed.
distance to cover for sure. So that makes sense. So thanks for explaining Force March. And again, yeah, the rules are again nice, complete rule booklet, nice index, so you can easily look up a certain key section of the rules and find out what page it's on, what numbered section it represents. So yeah, overall, just a great looking package, Kris. As again, no surprise to any of us. Again, those that have experienced Europe in turmoil are really excited to see another title coming from you. I'm excited for the Kickstarter to be launching here. It's great to see there's so many scenarios. It's not just one or two scenarios. You've done 7 scenarios here. I understand the future might hold some additional scenarios, even that might be might be coming in the future as well. So it's not like it's going to stop right here. Although 7's a great number of scenarios. And then gameplay. I assume gameplay's. I know it's on the back of the box, but I imagine it's just a few hours. I guess the shorter scenarios are very fast.
It's an evening, yes. So many of the scenarios are just 3 or 4 turns. And 2 of those 7 are really 9 and 11 turns. They are really the big ones, the campaign game. But I think usually you will opt for just an evening scenario.
Great. Now, is there anything, before we close on Barbarian at the Gates here, is there anything I should have asked you about the design? Or I guess I'll throw out my one final question, which I like to ask, and that is, was there any, during the design development process, was there any particular aspect of the design that was you found the most challenging, or perhaps took the most effort to get to where you were comfortable, you were satisfied with the result? Just curious if there's anything you would pull out of your whole design process that sticks in your mind today as we get ready to bring the game to market.
Maybe the coolest thing I think that I added in this game is the usurpation mechanic. So that means that is when a general or a governor decides he's going to try to go for the throne. Because this means a lot of things. So it happened a lot during this time period. But what it means is the Roman player can never give one of his leaders too many troops. Because then that becomes a juicy target. So you have to spread out your troops, make sure that you have a general nearby to defeat such a rebel.
That's interesting, because I think I've played other ancient games where I went pretty high in stacks with troops, and there was no problem. It was like monster stack, best leader, take it away. so that's interesting. So we'll have to keep an eye out for that mechanic. So we'll keep that in mind for the design. Now, before I let you go tonight, I want to ask you about what's in the future for you. So we've got your initial game that's already done, Europe in Turmoil. Now we have Barbarians at the Gates. That's going to be on Kickstarter and then shipping shortly thereafter. Could you share with us what you're working on now?
Yeah, so we worked on a second edition, a deluxe edition of Europe in Turmoil. And at the same time, we did the graphic design for Europe in Turmoil 2, the interbellum years. So there's a second edition of Europe in Turmoil 1, but there is also going to be a game on the period 1920 to 1939. So between the world wars, so the Weimar Republic, the coming to power of the Nazi Party, fascism on one side, on the other side communism with Stalin, the Stalinist period, and again a building up to a world war. Lots of politics between the left wing and the right wing.
Sure.
And going to extreme situations.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much. So again, thank you again. A lot of fans of Europe in Turmoil. I know they wish they could have interacted with you live tonight, but hopefully, I know we'll have other opportunities, hopefully in the future. And you're like you said, you're quite easy to reach online. So absolutely, I know people will look forward to, and we'll be talking about Barbarians at the Gates for sure for a while. Besides that second edition of Europe in Turmoil that's going to be coming, and then the new project, as you just mentioned, for that period leading to World War II. So. Thank you so much, Kris, for joining us. Sorry to keep you late in the evening in Belgium, but it's wonderful that we could have this on as part of our Compass Games Live tonight to really celebrate the launch of our Kickstarter that's going to be happening for Barbarians at the Gates. So we really appreciate it a lot.
It was my pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
Okay. Alrighty, we're back. Sorry about that. Hit the wrong button. So first of all, I'm very excited to see that Facebook streaming is working. I was able to find a way to troubleshoot it. So while the recording was going on with Kris Van Beurden, and again, it was a pre-recorded session about 2 days ago. Apparently my hair looked a little more in order 2 days ago as well. But yeah, 4 a.m. for Kris. If he did this live right now, that would have been a problem. Looks like one of my dogs just pulled my hexagon globe light out. So I'm getting attacked by dogs here as well. So we're having all kinds of fun live here tonight. Pleasure to have you here again. And just a reminder again about Barbarians at the Gates. Now we are officially live with the Kickstarter. So I posted earlier the link. Again, you can just go on Kickstarter directly and just type Barbarians at the Gates. That's the easiest way to find it. And yeah, we've got people already starting to back the project. Also, it didn't come up in the interview. Just we tried to keep it short to about a 30-minute interview. But we're expecting to have some what-if alternative history scenarios included as well, some plausible what-if scenarios will most likely be added to the game as well. So even though we've got a lot in the box already with the 7 scenarios, etc., and you've had this introduction from Kris, expect there's going to be even more material we're going to be adding to the game. And then, of course, in Paper Wars, our House Organ magazine, we're always looking to expand games that way as well. So we're excited about the Kickstarter now being launched. And again, it was wonderful having Kris on. As mentioned, this is a 2-for-1 special tonight. So I'm excited that we could go from a pre-recorded session, be back live again, and do a live interview. So we're going to be welcoming Joe Fernandez. I've had the privilege and pleasure to be working with Joe on several designs, and this is the first design we're going to be talking about that Joe's working on for us, which is Storm of Steel Junker 87 Eastern Front, as you can see right here. So there you have the title box image that we do. Bruce Urian, who's joining us live tonight as well. Bruce has been doing all the artwork for the game, and we brought this up in the last town hall session with Bill Thomas that the original plan may have been to actually launch the pre-order page tonight so we can accept orders right away live while we welcome Joe tonight. But as Bill mentioned in our town hall, in case you missed it, we have quite a backlog of games, and Bill's wants to hold off just a little bit because we've got a lot of pre-orders out there that we still need to ship. It's not going to be long, though. It will not be long at all. I expect the pre-order will launch within 30 to 60 days, most likely. So if, a lot of you, I think, will be interested in this title. And rest assured, you're going to see a lot of artwork tonight. It's basically 95% done. That's how far along it is, and that's why you would have qualified to be on Kickstarter, on the pre-order already, on the pre-order page already. But yes, we do want to give it a little more time, given the project pipeline we have. But we're very excited to say this game is very far along. So let's find out more right now about Stuka Ace. I'm going to welcome, and I want to thank Joe Fernandez for patiently waiting on while we did our. We had to broadcast Joe, as you saw, but I think it's good news. I think it's very good news that we had you go second tonight because we were having Facebook was having some technical issues, and I was able to re-establish a connection to Facebook that's stuck. So we definitely have a wider audience. We have people coming in on Facebook tonight. So welcome. Want to welcome you to our show tonight.
Hey, thanks, John. Hello, everyone.
It's great to have you here. I like your little setup there. It looks like you got some shelves. Now, is that your basement? I think you've got your office basement bunker.
The bunker is inside within the garage. So
wonderful.
Inside,
I had a garage that was converted to a room once long ago.
I mean, I built the room within the garage. So.
Oh, nice. Oh, wonderful. That's even better. Even better. So I'm showing the cover here. So I'm excited just from seeing the cover. But the good news for everybody else is we're going to go beyond the cover. We're gonna cover as many of the components that we can tonight within about 25 minutes to a half hour because we don't want to go too long with our show tonight, but we want to get people interested in your game, in your design. We want to learn about it. So maybe we can start with an elevator pitch. Of course, I've got the back of the box as well, which might help. Again, All the artwork you see here, folks, by Bruce Urian that Joe worked on with him, it's pretty much done. So maybe I'll do a close-up on this a little bit here. Maybe you can walk us through sort of high level what your game is about, Storm of Steel.
So Storm of Steel is a solitaire air war game. I decided to go with Eastern Front because it provided me with the most diverse amount of missions that the Stuka flew during World War II. I stayed away from the earlier Blitzkrieg and, of course, the Battle of Britain because British pilots used to call shooting down Stukas a Stuka party. So I thought the Eastern Front gave me the most latitude to make unique missions within the title. It's a tactical game, solitaire first and foremost. It's a tactical game where each single aircraft is represented by individual crew members as well. So the player has an option to fly the entire staffel as a staffel captain or a squadron commander. And the game is divided into two parts. First, the player selects and flies the missions spanning from Operation Barbarossa to Case Blue, Fall Blau, and finally with Operation Citadel and the JU-87G model, which was the tank buster. So
I really like, and that's showing here. I think everybody. And now, one thing just to point out for everybody, again, it's not on a pre-order page yet, so I'm trying to do the best job I can tonight to show, and we'll zoom in on graphics because I know the viewers tonight can't go to the website yet to see what I'm showing tonight, but for those watching live now, you can see, I love the description here because you have it broken out in operations like Operation Barbarossa. Then you've got other, Winter Storm, for example. So you've got all these various operations on the Eastern Front that you specify. So I really like how you blended the history of these campaigns on the East Front that basically you're going through. And as you mentioned, it's a Stoffel. It's not just one plane as a single pilot. Is that correct as far as what you have to manage in the game Solitaire?
You manage the staffel during the sorties or the missions going using an abstract method. And I stayed away from the map. I put a lot of effort into that map. I've been doing this game for over 2 years. But it was cumbersome and it didn't add anything to the experience. So I just went with the abstract zone movement, which is roughly about 30 kilometers per zone.
Okay.
To give you an average range of the regular Stuka, which is some 500-600 kilometers.
Excellent.
So
excellent.
The player plays the mission, the bombing mission. He equips the aircraft with a bomb load ordnance. He can assign individual pilots and gunner observers, and that's part of the narrative experience that I wanted to give players as well.
Great. And then here, I just want to show for the viewers the bottom description of the box on the right, and then the components. Hopefully, I think folks can read the components here. Quite a lot of components. We have a nice large size operations map, which I'll show here in a moment. We'll show the counter sheets. We'll show all this. We've got event cards, aircraft cards. So there's a lot in the game. There's a lot of great stuff, as you can see here, again, from the box image in the box that we're going to go through here in a moment. So, and I also wanted to let you know, and again, this is not on this is not available yet online. This will be available when the Kickstarter launches for the game. But I did want to share with everybody, Joe, and then I'll let you feel free to call out any sections if you'd like in the rules, or we can wait till we get to the components, whatever you prefer. But I would like to share with everybody just to see a quick overview of the rule booklet that we have here. Again, as you can see, most of this work is all done. Which is our new rule. Before we go to a pre-order, we want to have as much of the game done as possible, and that's what we've done here. So I'm just going to show, and I'm going to page through this, Joe. If there's any place you want me to stop, let me know. I'll pause so you can explain anything you like at that point.
Sure.
So
the wonderful work done by Bruce with the artwork is just phenomenal.
Yeah, Bruce.
Very detailed work. I'm super happy, and I think players are going to be as well. With the
and it's
that Bruce put forth.
Looking forward to showing some close-ups of the components here in a moment, but here we go with the rules. So you can see we got the starting with the aircraft cards. We're going through the components to the game here. As you can see, we've got some of the event cards. So there are event cards included besides the aircraft cards. So there's two types of cards. Just going through the sections, I see things like formation, Stoffel, flight leaders. The ordnance selections are included as well, and we have counters for those ordnance selections that I've got highlighted here for everybody to see. So again, and the rules, I think what everybody's going to be pleased about the rules is, again, it's not a ton of pages. You'll find, we'll get to a total page count here in a moment when we get to the end, but the rules are very digestible. It's the first thing I notice about your system, that's going to be very playable. It's not a complicated, complex game whatsoever. And here we get into
I included a how to play. It's a one sheet how to play, which can get players going.
Yep, I'm going to show the how to play sheet as well. And then again, how to play the game. We start here in the far column on page 8. That goes through, sequence of play, basically what happens during play. Of course, the crew, managing the crews, etc., is covered here in the rules section 6. The combat missions themselves. Would you say the combat mission is the heart of the system? If you had to say there was a core to your system, what would you say would be the keystone focus of your design? Would it be around the combat missions, you think, or something else?
Well, the uniqueness of the game is that not only is it a squadron that you're managing, but once you land from your missions, you have to deal with wounded crew, with damaged aircraft, and you really have to manage the way you're going to fly the next mission, because I've also included a stress dynamic where it sort of abstracts fatigue for the pilots. Most of those pilots flew over 500 missions during Barbarossa.
500 missions, 500 sorties, and just for Barbarossa. Holy
pilot,
smoke!
Per crew. So
wow.
There was a lot of attrition. So the commander or the player has to deal with that by perhaps leaving aircraft that are not optimal behind, or having a crew being replaced by a green crew if they have a veteran crew that's high on the stress level. And there's ways to mitigate all that.
Ways to mitigate that. Yeah.
I'm going to point out with Glenn Saunders, one of the playtesters, elite playtesters. He actually helped me a lot with cleaning up I had a bunch of charts for this, and we came up with a really nice and elegant system just for tracking wounded pilots and damaged and destroyed aircraft.
Wonderful. And to your point, Joe, yes, there's a crew stress section in the rules here. It's probably hard to see online, but actually, we've got crew stress is actually covered right here where my highlight is. So that is covered, which is really, really sounds like it's an important aspect to cover. Then we get through the scoring, the log sheets. I'll show all these things again. But look, we're right at the designer notes, everybody. So just to let you know, there's careers and promotions that we end with in the rule booklet. That's where it closes out. But then we get right into your designer notes, which, of course, we can cheat because we have you on tonight. So,
well, it was a lot, some abstraction, of course. I mean, we only have 2 models, which is the Junker 87 D Delta and the G model. I mean, the D model, we're making all the other variants into one, and the G model was just unique because of its 37 millimeter autocannon and the anti-armor capabilities it had, and it's just a fun part of the system to take out tanks with cannons. And also I have included a maritime component where players can get a chance to go against Russian battleships, just like Rudel did with the Marats and I think it was the Baltic.
Baltic area.
So there's a lot of nuances with the system that I think are going to be welcomed by the solitaire player.
Right. And one thing we always try to do traditionally at Compass, and Bill speaks to this a lot, it's real important for us to provide examples of play to help with the learning curve for a first-time player, just getting into the game for the very first time. So we can see here on page 20, the right page, it starts. We have a nice example of play, and actually there's a summary sheet about playing the game I'm going to show here in a moment as well, that separate sheet you mentioned. But here we go through 2.5 pages worth of content to help people with images to back up exactly what's going on as far as...
First time I see it too. I hadn't seen that.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. Yeah. So Bruce is a very busy guy. He's added this content to it, and then we like to incorporate a rules index at the back. So that's my job. I'll be adding that rules index to the back cover. That's why it's intentionally blank. So yeah, there we go. So let's go through. What I'd like to do is go through some of the components, and that might give you a chance to go through a little bit deeper with the design. So maybe for now we can start. Maybe we can start right here. We can start with the operations. I believe this is called the operations display.
Correct.
So maybe you can walk us through a little bit, maybe a little more detail if you'd like. If you want to pick out any particular sections of this display, that would be wonderful. Actually, maybe I'll leave this mode just so I can zoom in. In case I need to zoom in, I can do that this way. So yeah, let me know if there's a certain area you want me to focus on, and I'll do my best to do that.
Okay, on the right-hand side is the mission soundtrack. Of course, you can put your event cards and the disabled aircraft on the right-hand side.
Okay, here's the mission soundtrack.
So every mission starts at the airfield, and depending on the mission assignment, which is a chart, you can either go from 1 to 6.
Okay.
Yeah, from 1 to 6, depending on the type of mission and what role you get.
Okay.
Each one of those is approximately 30 kilometers.
30. Oh, that's right. You said it's 30 kilometers per zone.
And the only difference is you have a keta. It's abstracted in the game as 2 or 3 aircraft.
Okay.
You don't play the zone number 6, so that would be one of the nuances of the system to give the players a chance to survive such a long mission with few aircraft.
Okay.
The flying circle on the middle.
Yes.
That's where you place your staffel, and that's where you resolve any air interceptions.
Air interceptions.
Well,
okay.
Yes, any air interceptions resolve here, and air interceptions are dependent on what time, what period you're playing. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Where of course, Barbarossa, it's a shooting fish in a barrel. So you're basically conducting your bombing missions with very high probability of escorts and low probability of Soviet intercepts. So as you progress during the war, that gets worse.
Things are going to, characteristics are going to change for these missions depending on what campaign part of the war. Any particular spot you want me to zoom back out a little bit here, just so everybody gets
I included all the those charts are separate player aids, but I've included them in the with Bruce and the operations mat, so you don't have to be referring back and forth to the rule book or to other charts. You can just
oh, that's great. So you don't have to pull out the rules for certain references. You can just
Correct.
You can take advantage of this display right here. Now, I didn't ask you this before. We've got this big section here that I'll highlight again. So we've got these placeholders. Are these where the aircraft cards go? I'm guessing.
That's where you place your aircraft, starting with the flight leader on the number 1 spot, and that's where you assign your ordnance for your staffel. Then to the right of that, you have any DRMs that are applied either by stress, crew stress. There's a host of DRMs that can affect your bombing, your bailout attempts, your landings, and I also have a mechanic for returning from behind enemy lines to get shut down.
From behind enemy lines if you're shot down. Okay, wow.
If you're shut down, like for example, on zone number 6, it's going to be a lot harder to get your pilot back.
Right, because you're so far out. You're 180.
Part of the narrative experience that, for example, Ernst Rudel, the Stuka's experience, he was shut down over a dozen times, and he always returned home. So
amazing. Oh, that's incredible. And then I see on the right side here, if I sort of scroll, we've got a crew and aircraft management chart that has quite a bit of information in here. We got the hospital, damage, aircraft repair and replace, available crew holding areas, and replacement crews, POWs, killed in actions. A lot of interesting detail here you have as well about the crew.
It is, but it flows. And like I said before, Glenn helped me a lot in cleaning this up. And it was I had separate charts for this, and we finally came up with the holding area and the replacement crew and hospital charts and also the damaged aircraft. So it would act like a repair hangar, and then the hospital is for wounded pilots and gunners. And the holding area, basically, you can track the stress on the crew, and after finishing each mission, you take 1 crew stress out.
Okay.
And therefore improving your odds for any DRM.
So you could, let them rest for stress. Okay, I see that right here. We have in red. It's in red type, so it stands out about the stress levels, etc. So yeah, it's an important aspect, like you said. 500 sorties, and some have commented. The viewers here have commented about that. Very interesting about all these sorties they were flying and the impact to the crew because of that. One thing I want to do, since we talked about the cards a little bit already, is I'd like to just show the playing cards here, if that's okay. If you can maybe give us a quick overview what I'm looking at here. Looks like we've got some markers we're going to be placing. And again, these cards go on that map we just looked at. So maybe you can give us a quick overview of what we see here on this card and how it would be used.
Sure. So you have pilot experience. You get pilots that are green up to hero, and you can only get one hero pilot. And the way I also stay away from ranks because I found it cumbersome. So as you progress through the operations and the campaign, should you wish to play the campaign, you get upgrades. So you go from green to veteran to elite to hero, and that gives you extra positive DRMs for your bombing and other attempts for bailout, for landing. There you can set up your damage for engine port and starboard wings, fuel systems, tail.
Yep, I can see that.
Gunner wounded.
Yep, I can see that right here.
The gunner and pilot may have different experience, but they can of course fly together. And
Got
then
it. So
that's the G model. So you don't have any bombs. So it's just a port wing cannon that you can sustain damage or be destroyed and the starboard.
Okay. Well, let me go to the other cards. I'll move up to the main. Let me move up here to the D. So here we have here we're showing that bottom section. Now you were sorry about that. That you were talking about. So here we have those systems being armaments being supported. So this is the D type, right?
Correct. We also it started to be a little cumbersome to place bombs on each aircraft each time. So what I did was had a set of ordnance for each type of mission, but I also included specific counters like the SC 1800, which was a huge bomb that Stuka could carry, but it couldn't carry a gunner, and the range was reduced. So that's incorporated into the game as well. Also, the armor piercing 1000 armor piercing bomb, which was used extensively against armored targets and ships. So if you have a maritime mission, for example, you can take 2 AP 1000s on your Stuka and attempt to sink some of the maritime components.
Maritime, yeah, I've seen some comments here about naval maritime operations, so it's great to hear that's covered. Somebody was asking a question about how big are the charts. Maybe we go back just for a moment to the map. The map itself is a full size, if I'm not mistaken. I know it's on that back of the box component list. I believe it's 22 by 34. So thanks for joining us, IBeam81 on YouTube. Thanks for being here and for your question. So yes, what you're seeing right here, this is the main operations display. Again, it's multiple cards. As you can see, there's 2 rows for 5 cards for the aircraft cards. So it's a full size map, 22 by 34 display. It's a serious display, as they would say. But I'm going to show just the regular size player 8 cards. I'm going to be getting to that in a moment. So definitely I hope that helps as far as that goes. Can you mention, well, maybe I should show, since we've shown the display and the cards that can be placed on the display, I will get to the event cards in a moment, Joe, but let's go ahead and take a look at the counter sheet. If you can walk us through the counter sheet. And again, this is Bruce Urian's artwork again. So thank you, Bruce, for a wonderful job again on all the components. Could you walk us through what we're seeing here regarding the markers and how they would be, I think we know how they're going to be used on those cards and on the map, but maybe you can walk us through any specific markers you'd like to draw attention to?
Well, you can see the pilots up. We've also, do you have the individual pilot and crew names? That one?
Let's see. I should have it. Let me scroll. Is it on this sheet? Well, there's at the bottom right here. Is that what it would?
There should be about 60 something pilots and crew. Most of them.
There we go.
There they are.
There we go. I'll zoom in for everybody.
Historical Stuka crews, also some made up names, but so that's part of the narrative experience. You can put these guys on a mission log and keep playing the entire campaign, and you can choose either a short operation or campaign or a long one. So one mission typically takes about from 20 to 25, 30 minutes per mission.
That's not bad for a single mission. That sounds pretty good actually for what the action takes.
You can have a quick and you can put it away, and as long as you have your logbooks filled, you can always come back to the game
exactly. And then just so Just so everybody knows, as part of the artwork, these are not the final printer files. So for those that have a sharp eyesight, you'll see there's some numbers and there's some grid lines on the sheets. That just helps with placement for Bruce Urian, the artist, to get everything placed in position for the die cut. And the numbers, of course, go away as well. That's just part of the template. All that goes away, obviously, in the final counter sheet. But I think this gives, at least this is something we can show tonight. Yeah, like I said, these are near final counters, or if not final counters. And then we would just get rid of the template markings on top of the counter. Should I go back now? We've got, yeah, that's great. Look at all these personalities. This is, and like you said, I know some are
your own if you want. There's some down there that.
Oh, right. So down here, everybody, you can add your own. Sorry, in the front side here, we can see at the very bottom we've got some generic no-name markers. So that sounds wonderful. And then I'll go back to the top sheet again. I don't know if there's anything here you want. We got the armaments. I like the lucky dog and the Stug 1 armament symbol. That's some really cool.
It's a really good idea, and actually that was by Glenn Saunders as well. One of the pilots on flying a Keta, which is a 2 or 3 man, 3 aircraft formation.
Yeah,
gets the lucky dog.
Gets the lucky dog. Okay.
And he gets a pass on anti-aircraft fire over the objective zone. So that plane, he's the lucky dog. He gets a pass on anti-aircraft fire over the target area.
Great. And you get a big thumbs up, by the way, from the viewers that you added some generic counters where they can add their own personalities to them. I see one person already says they're going to bring in their own Weasel Wasserman will fly again. So Kurt's excited that he's going to be taking part on the Eastern Front, various operations. I do also note with interest, some of these mission counters, they look great, by the way. Great job again, yep. Bruce. Really great work. So we've got all these different missions. We're talking about maritime and the naval. We can see we've got escorts, gunboats, cargo ships, battleships. So you've got the whole, it's not just the land operations. We've got everything covered here in these brown markers here. So yeah, this looks wonderful. I think, yeah, just kudos to your overall design.
If you score 100% on a battleship, your pilot gets automatically promoted to the next level. So.
Oh, automatic. They level up, as they say, right? For sinking a battleship. I think that makes sense. I think I would go along with that logic. Right. Very good. But I hope everybody's excited about the artwork I've shown so far, but I do have more for you. Let's go to the event cards next. So here we go.
Bruce did a phenomenal job with the event cards.
Yep. So here we have some event.
He added the little historical nuggets on each one, and that was a real nice touch.
Oh, great. Bruce. So here's the back face of each card. Maybe you can walk us through, Joe, what we have, what's happening here.
Sure. Every time you go enter a zone, you draw an event card. So
every time you go... Okay.
Into a zone, you draw one, and two things happen. You have to check for a Soviet intercept and draw an event card. Now, event cards are somewhat balanced. You might have. This is probably one of the worst ones. You have to select one random aircraft to get back to base, and that one you take out when you're flying 3 or less aircraft. So,
gotcha.
So you have some positive ones. It's just regular event card. Dynamics and mechanics.
I like what you mentioned here. I do like the added. I think it's a great opportunity with the cards anyway, like with event cards, adding that historical detail. So kudos to Bruce if he worked with you to add these historical notes in that bottom white area.
He surprised me with that. I didn't have that. Mine, I only had the
Bruce adding value to your design. Yeah. I love it. I love how it's a team effort. So thanks to Bruce for that. Mechanical failure. Yeah, we got so every zone. So you go zone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. So every time you're in a different zone, you're going to draw an event card, basically.
Correct. I mean, you might draw a mission that's only 2 zones deep. So
I don't like this one. I do not like this card. I think something happens with this card.
Yeah, correct.
Intercepted. That's not good. I do like this one for good intel for the Germans. Tailwind. Oh, you get to move. Look at that. You don't have to roll for intercept. I like that.
That one is,
a faster, just zipping along, and yeah, that's great. Like a free pass. I like that. Lost Rabbit's Foot. Add 1 CS. That stands for, what's the CS stand for?
Cruise stress.
Cruise stress. That's right.
Some of the hits on the aircraft also cause stress. So instead of damage, some of on the lower end of the damage table, instead of having your aircraft damaged, it might just be a bullet that just nicked the fuselage or whatever, and then you added crew stress to that.
So does Rudel's book talk about that? Like I haven't read anything that talks about crew stress. So
no, it was just a mechanic that I thought of to.
I love that. I love that concept that based on what happens, crew stress could be impacted.
I mean, these guys didn't have the stress as they of course they had stress, but the Stuka pilots were they were a wild bunch. I mean, they would pull that plane almost 90 degrees to the ground, and I put a mechanic that's called Rudel's Gamble, and he actually went into to bomb the Merritt battleship, and he pulled the stick close to 300 feet, and his Stuka wheels almost touched the water pulling out.
Oh my gosh! Wow,
So,
that would be a little bit stressful.
He sank it, so
wow. I like this historical note. During the advance on Stalingrad, the Ju-87s flew an average of 500 sorties per day. Wow, that's amazing. So yeah, kudos on these historical events. Look really interesting. Very. I'm just scrolling through so everybody can get a little sense of. Here's an ace card. Nice weather effects. A waypoint without incident, no effect. Lost comrade. Very cool. We got lots of great events in here. So wonderful. So how many cards again? I didn't. I can check the back of the box. Do you know how many
24, I believe.
24.
Number.
Okay, great. And then we've talked about the Stuka cards already. Maybe just briefly, yes, there is a mission log, right? You have to track status of things. So I think this is self-explanatory. Just a note for Bruce, who's on here, in case I forget to post on Basecamp. Please add Bruce by the copyright permission to print. Sometimes print shops or copiers get antsy when they see a copyright on any material, and we want to make sure people can print with no problem. So we'll add a little permission to print to this log sheet for sure. Let's go to the player aid card. So again, the question came up earlier, size of cards. Yeah, standard size card, except for the big operations map. So maybe you can walk us through here, if you don't mind, Joe. What do we see here? What are these charts and tables covering for the game?
There's only two chart cards, U.S. letter, 8 by 8.5 by 11. So that's how you roll for mission assignments, right? So you have the die roll on the left is the type of mission, and then
I love how you have I love how you have the operations in here: Barbarossa, Case Blue, Citadel, Kursk, which I believe that's the one that ends. Doesn't it end with Kursk 43? I think that's the ending timeline of your game.
It is
right?
Because after that, I mean, the Stuka after that, it was like I said, there's a time period where the Stuka was very successful, and that was during the Blitz on France and the Low Countries. The Mediterranean was a fairly interesting theater, but I think this timeline of 1941 to 1943 was where the heyday of the Stuka on the Eastern Front.
So we got some bombing, attack accuracy, scoring tables I see here, target visibility, operation, and campaign scoring. So based on your score, what level you achieved for the operation. Very interesting. Anti-aircraft ordnance. Yeah, so that's what I think is really nice to hear. I think people will be probably quite pleased about this regarding your game. Is I think most solitaire games you get today, usually there's depends on the designer, right? Depends on what the design is, and you're going to go a different direction. So I know, for example, we have designs that are very narrative driven, or you have a lot of cards, or maybe even have a booklet. You go through the booklet as you play the game. But what I think differentiates your design's approach here in terms of components, which I think people might like, is that you only have 2 player aid cards that you need for during play. There's not 10, 15, 20 player aid cards to get out. Or a booklet of charts and tables you have to get out, right? And
I try to stay close to the most wonderful Avalon Hills B-17 Queen of the Skies, and that was my inspiration. Other than I really wanted to make a Stuka game because there was none in the market.
Yeah, and then I got a question for you from Mike Anthony, who's joining us on YouTube tonight. Can you start in Poland? I know it's Operation Barbarossa, so I would imagine no. This is 41 through 43. Although that means there could be something in the offing, maybe a future module or something could be considered that would cover Poland. Am I correct about that?
It does not cover Poland.
Right. It starts Operation Barbarossa.
Correct.
Barbarossa, which again is reinforced when we look at the starting June, July 41 for Barbarossa. That's the starting point. I'll zoom in here just so you can see it a little bit better. But yeah, here we go. We're starting 41 through 43. And so Again, the good news is maybe this means we can twist your arm, Joe, and we'll get to see some other, we'll get some other campaigns and operations covered. I think that's what everybody's going to be interested in knowing about. Besides, obviously, when this game's going to be shipping, which hopefully by end of the year, et cetera, of course, is our goal. So, because this is ready for the printers very, very soon. So that's the exciting news there. And then it says here, good timing on the release. I just saw an announcement from Dan Viersen about a Stuka Leader game coming. And that's something you'll know about Compass. We don't really pay any attention, to be honest, about what other games are coming out. Don't forget, Bill Thomas loves World War I games, and we have like 5 or 6 strategic World War I games. So obviously we're not shy about supporting designers with different approaches to the same theme or the same type of game, because every designer has something different to contribute. And I think you're an excellent example of that, Joe. How you, with your design and your approach, obviously it's going to be much different than perhaps another Stuka type game, going on as well. So I think everybody's going to be excited to take advantage of this. And then here's the other part of the player aid card. I don't want to forget the back side. So we have fighter. I'll zoom in for everybody on viewing tonight. So we have a fighter intercept table. Again, it's based on the operations that you might be undertaking for the various campaigns. Could you tell us a little bit more about what's going on with this Luftwaffe escort table? I see die roll. I see some number ranges here, some red numbers. Can you help us?
Depending if you go up a little bit, each section it's divided by roughly 2 months. So
okay,
like in June, July,
yep.
There are a lot of no contacts before the Luftwaffe range 3.
They're air supremacy, I imagine, too.
Correct.
Early on,
but it was not a cakewalk like a lot of people think. I mean, the Soviets did put up the Red Cross that was flying in the sky, and they were shooting down planes. But it got progressively worse for the Germans up till November Typhoon, which was, when they actually tried to take over Moscow. So those tables work with each other. First, you have to check if you have contact or no contact. And if you do, then you roll for see if you have Luftwaffe escorts. Do you have your fighter escorts? So if you're on that segment of June, July, you're going to have a higher than normal average of having a successful escort, and the red numbers indicate how many fighters you take out if you're intercepted. So the escorts can take care of the fighters before they hit your staffel, but if they do, then you have to roll for approach and then damage to a randomly picked.
I think it's just wonderful again how you got all this on 2 player aid cards. That's great.
It was
not
very
that
hard,
much.
But we got it done. And
so here we have enemy fighter approach. I can see we've got the different approaches to the fighter for resolving these air battles. I take it. So we're getting more tactical here, dealing with the actual approaches of the fighter.
Of course, you got the gunner in the back, so you get a DRM for having a rear gunner, and then if you have an elite rear gunner, you get additional DRMs.
Perfect.
And if you have a hero, which is only one per
group,
so it's
right?
a brutal type guy who actually, of mythical fame that some claim he shut down Soviet aircraft with the Stuka. I don't have any proof of that. There's no
interesting.
There's no sourcing for that. We knew he shut down enemy fighters on the Focke-Wulf 90, but we don't know about the Stuka. But there's a very slight chance. If you will.
Gotcha. So this was the 1 player aid card. Again, not many player aid cards are necessary, which I think is really nice. So here's the other player aid card.
Most of that stuff is in the air operations mat for you to play. You don't need to
you don't have to refer. You were saying you don't have to refer to the rules if you have that mat, the large 22 by 34 mat out.
Yep.
So that's great. So that's why maybe you have less reference to the rules and less player aid cards.
Damage chart for the different systems on the aircraft.
Yep. See that there?
Pretty standard die roll.
Yep.
It's just cross-referencing the system with what type of damage, and of course you have the very catastrophic damages in some.
Great. Yep. So we have all the different things we have to account for. So this is wonderful. So that's. I hope everybody's excited about. I'm glad we could show all the components in pretty great detail. And like I said, we'll do our best. As soon as the pre-order, obviously, once we launch the official pre-order page for for your game Storm of Steel. We will have a lot of these components obviously on the website. So in the meantime, at least we have this video recording. People will be able to refer to the operations map display, which is a full-size map. We've got the counter sheets, which we went over already, the event card, and then there's, of course, the aircraft cards that get placed on that display that I just showed here a moment ago in that bottom half of the display. And then we just have those two player aid cards. This was double-sided right here, and then we had the single-sided. This was I believe this was a single-sided card. Yes, single-sided landscape mode card for a player aid. So last thing we have here, which I think is wonderful, is besides the example of play that is already incorporated into the rule booklet that I showed earlier. Thank you again for adding more information for the players to support learning the game and how to play. Let me ask you one question here. So do you take the approach that whenever you're doing an example of play or how to play, that you're trying to give them strategy to sort of cheat and let them, or do you let them figure out how to fail on their own and learn from their mistakes? So how do you approach when you write these examples? Are you trying to give tips, or are you being very clever and sneaky and evil?
Oh no, no. I just try to. I see it how I want it to be. I want to open a game and a war game and get right to it. I don't want to be sifting through a bunch. I know a lot of people do it, but I like to get a quick play card and just get to playing and then figure everything out else as I go.
Right.
So with that in mind, I thought that how to play was a one-pager.
Nice cheat sheet approach, a play summary approach.
A play summary that you can look up and start moving counters and maybe do one mission and then, get your feet wet for.
That's a good point, because the example of play is really focusing on certain aspects of play, which we have. I know it's 2.5 pages long in the rule booklet, but this is sort of a play cheat sheet summary of this is what's going to happen during play versus a set example of exactly this is what's happened, and this is more of a guide of how gameplay would work. And as a reminder again for everybody, I should just show again, I'm sure everybody will be interested to see this again if I go back to the role booklet here. So again, it's only 24 pages, everybody. So, and I'll focus in on that. I think that's worth a zoomed in look. So again, 24-page role booklet. As you can see, it's final draft mode, just about ready to go. Not a complex game by any stretch. And again, even what Joe mentioned tonight, you're not going to be referencing the rules all the time because the display itself has those rules case references that are needed during play. So you're not going to be shuffling back and forth all the time, going to these rules once you learn them. You're going to find most of the information on the mat, on that 22 by 34 display mat, or map, I should call it, because it's big, or on those two player aid cards. And here again is that example of play that's 2.5 pages long. So again, I think that's just worth showing. I think it's a pretty full comprehensive package. Usually what happens is, and I get the same result with other people doing solitaire games on certain themes, is like, oh, I wish you had covered this period. I wish you covered this period or this theater. And oh, you didn't do this one yet, like Poland or North Africa, But the exciting news is the options are limitless to a degree. There's a lot of campaigns and theaters you can cover. And this being the first release, maybe you get some great player feedback from a larger audience than the play testers that you have already. And maybe you'll incorporate, besides new rules based on theater specific, historical facts that need to be modeled in your games. I'm excited about the potential. I hope you will be considering that this was an enjoyable design experience for you, and that you'll consider follow-on titles to this one, because it looks very well thought out for sure.
A lot of effort was put into it.
And as Max says, it's hard to wait that long. And why don't we share with everybody really quickly while we have you on here? And I apologize to everybody. I know we were going to run long tonight, but I'm glad we got Facebook working at least in the meantime, because we had 2 interviews. We packed in 2 interviews tonight. Could you share with everybody what other projects you're currently working on? Just a quick snapshot besides, obviously, Storm of Steel that we're talking about tonight.
So we have another one with Compass. It's called Cross Rifles Cold War. It's a low complexity tactical infantry game based on 1980s type of scenarios. It's going to be a quick play. It's individual soldiers. It's going to be a fire team. A total of 6 soldiers are traversing terrain, engaging enemies, and fulfilling missions. That's being worked on by the artist, I think, now. We
Yep.
have another game that I'm not really ready to discuss.
Yeah,
I
we'll
think
hold off
we've
on the other one, but
that one. I have
we
a
always
couple of
enjoy.
other publishers, and
Yeah,
I have about 8 or 9 uh, designs at different stages that hopefully you can take a look at and build and let me know if you guys are interested.
absolutely. So
Everything,
again,
every one of it's different. Nothing. Um, I don't have any one system that I've done 2 games on, so that's just the start
right.
of a lot of systems that I'm designing right now.
Well, the good news is, I think Bill Thomas is probably seeing all the components for the first time tonight. And this, I don't think I'm gonna have to twist his arm to get the pre-order page going. He was already saying last week during the town hall, "Oh, it's for this game," because we have so many games in the pipeline. Oh, it's that game. Oh, well, maybe I need to make exception to my rule that I want to hold off on pre-orders for now. so
Listen,
so
John,
I think after
I
Bill
add
sees
something?
this.
Can I add something before we go?
Yes, absolutely. Please do.
So, thanks to all the people. I'm sorry I haven't been able to keep up reading because I have it on the side here. But
No
I
problem.
want to thank Tim Rees, Al Grant, Roger Estep, Greg Amos, who did the Vassal prototype module, Glenn Saunders, a phenomenal playtester and friend, Norm Stewart, and of course Bruce Jerry. And if anybody wants to volunteer for playtesting, that's the one area that's keeping our hobby alive and allowing us to make all these games. Because to be honest, there's no way this games get published without playtesters.
Absolutely. So, and phenomenal job tonight. Thank you for being on with us late tonight. Thanks for doing an introduction. I know this introduction was a little bit tougher because we had to. We couldn't rely on the website for other viewers to go to the website, so they really needed to see everything here live during this broadcast until we have the pre-order page launch. So I think great job explaining all the components, your approach to things. I'm glad you mentioned that when you play the game with the mat, you don't have to refer to the rules all that much. We don't have that many player aid cards to either. It's going to be very manageable on a table, which is a great smaller footprint, not having so many player aid cards. So I think there's a lot of pluses there. And again, I know people are going to be asking you next, what about Poland? What about other theaters, other opera? I hope you're working on we hope you're working already on other areas and other time periods with this system. So I think you got a big thumbs up tonight. I know Kurt for sure. And again for everybody, no pre-orders available yet. We're definitely expecting a really good pre-order interest in this game, but there's no place to look right now to pre-order this game. That will be coming soon. And of course, whenever I do our broadcasts or on social media, our website, etc., even on our homepage of our website, we list the latest pre-orders available, plus our newsletter if you subscribe. So we'll definitely get the word out within 30 to 60 days, Joe, of when your game's going to be officially open and available for pre-order. So with that, I want to thank you again so much. Thanks also for, I want to make sure you gave credit to all those individuals who helped you with the project throughout the period that you were playtesting, etc., and with Bruce the artist, etc. So very glad to see
and you
have
of course,
a great
for putting up with all the questions and inquiries constantly bothering you on Basecamp and
I have a great support. I have a great support. I have a great support system, and I think a lot of people are interested in this one. And definitely people interested to learn more about this one to follow. So, and people are ready. Like I said, as I promised, our audience always has ways to help you along if you're debating where to go next. We have plenty of people available to help you with that. And then, Kurt did notice we have copyright 2022 on the materials. You saw that probably on the log sheet where we need to add the permission to print. So yes, that is the goal to have that done. So, again. Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks so much again, Joe. Great job covering the game.
Thanks for stopping by and being here on Friday.
We'll have you on again when we get closer to ship. Obviously, when the game's about to ship, we'll be doing a Kickstarter campaign for Storm of Steel, and we'll be sure to have you on again. And I know there'll be other things we'll work with you on in support of our Kickstarter program once we do that. We're excited to have you back on again and working with you on your future designs as well. So thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, John. Take care.
Take care. And again, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Again, apologies for the little technical difficulties that Facebook was experiencing earlier today. I'm glad you were able to join us tonight. I hope this was helpful. I hope you enjoyed learning more about Barbarians at the Gates, which is now available on our Kickstarter pledge program. If you've pre-ordered Barbarians at the Gates, nothing to do. But if you're interested in the game, please check out our Kickstarter page for Barbarians at the Gates, most definitely. And again, it was a pleasure to have you. Thanks for being here on a Friday night. And we'll be back next Thursday for our next town hall with Bill Thomas. So have a good night, everybody. It was great having you on tonight, and have a great weekend. Take care, and bye-bye.